This is the latest game that caused the current world champion Vladimir Kramnik to rage quit Title Tuesday, or at least he didn't finish the tournament. There was still round 11 to go. Who was his opponent? A lowly FIDE master, Valentin Hulker, and he really does a Hulk smash on Kramnik here. Kramnik had white as well. This is online blitz chess. What a great game this is, and of course we got the drama at the end. Kramnik opens here with e4, and we get the aggressive Sicilian in response. By the way, not covering the World Chess Championship game today. Lots of recaps out there, bit of a boring draw. Should be back with that tomorrow. So knight f3, knight c6. These are now some of the most common moves for white here, of course, but none of them played. We get the old knight c3, maybe looking for a Grand Prix attack, smash the opponent, but e5 completely changes the character of the position. Big battle for d5 now, really fascinating. So bishop c4 is logical. This one develops d3, d6, and I love this from Kramnik. He goes h3, looks really natural, but after knight f6, he reaches down into his box of tricks and plays this weird looking maneuver, knight h2, completely forgetting Magnus Carlsen's commonly uttered maxim.
Der Springer an dem Rimmer ist absolut wie eine Schnitzel.
And after castles rotating round into here, a really weird, quirky, aggressive kind of idea, because if takes, you open the H file, attack on the way, this maybe, bring the queen, rah, all that stuff, right? So that knight wasn't taken. Instead, we get this one stepping back. Really like that move, suddenly leaving this one a bit out on a limb. And after H4, more aggression, we see the game hotting up in the center over this square. Now, why wasn't the pawn captured? Again, simply for the fact that g3 can come. You opened the file here, the queen can stream out, everything. You don't want to be touching that pawn. So instead, knight b6 hits this bishop, but it doesn't actually move. Instead, knight e3 is played. Why don't we see captures? Well, you give this monster grip, good knights, dodgy bishop, not what you want. So instead, we get bishop e6. Why doesn't Kramnik take here? Of course, you'd never want to plug this hole. So instead, we see a piece occupy that all-important square. Hang on, has Kramnik won the battle for d5 here? How do you fight back? Well, an excellent move is played. Knight b4, challenging the square for a third time here. Really good understanding of the position, and that's why we now see a change of the position's character by taking on b6. If you left it there, we'd see a load of exchanges and you're forced to go with a pawn at some point. So this pawn now recaptures, and this is a critical line. Why don't we see c3? Get the knight stumbling backwards, then occupy the square with something or other. Looks lovely. Well, after c3, this is the point. Black's got a great response here with pawn d5. That's the counter shot. And if the knight's captured, this bishop drops. It's actually good for black, even though you lose a pawn. Here's one sample line. Ripping open the position for the bishops, and there's problems here, queen swapping off, pawn loose, everything. We won't keep clicking. So that's the way to go if c3, d5, but not played. Kramnik now takes. Of course, I mentioned you'd never normally do that to repair this hole here, but the position's changed since then. Kramnik wasn't able to dominate the square. d5 was on the way. So this is why he now goes for this procedure here. Didn't mean to say procedure, but maneuver maybe, or way of playing.
Mushrooms.
Now we get queen g4, hits the loose pawn, defended. There is an x-ray. You could go knight d5, get a bit fancy, but actually then just bishop d8, covers the pawn, and soon the queen slides to f7. Your knight's a bit stuck there, has to move. So best is actually running this pawn immediately. But instead we see g3, and there's lots of question marks coming for both players, because constantly the engine wants to run this pawn and it wants black to go h6 here, but not played. Excuse me. Couple of drinks last night at the Christmas party, losing my voice a bit here. Now we get bishop d2, b5 on the board, going for the counterplay, and h5 comes from Kramnik here. And I find it interesting that Stock Squid does want this pawn formation. Really weakens this square, but Not so easy to necessarily maneuver around, and if you do, you can get chopped, plus the knight could always cover the square, and I guess you kill the rook's activity a bit, etc. So that was a better structure apparently, but not done. Bishop d8, h6 is wanted, not played. Kramnik goes king e2 here, a mini bomb cloud, and after queen f7, he's got some problems with that pawn. So he advances it to f3, the queen now covering 2, and black's got a number of nice moves here. One of them bishop g5, for example, try and distract the queen, etc. But not played. Valentin decides he wants to push p before Kramnik can do so over there. And we now get rook hf1, covering this pawn here, sensitive, under attack. B takes on c3 played. Of course you take with the pawn. You don't want to leave that square open. Positional suicide. Now b5, more expansion, great play in the centre, and f4 from Kramnik. The game's getting sharp. The bishop comes out to try and glue everything together. How does Kramnik proceed here? Excellent move, pawn f5 of course. Breaking down the light squares, forcing open the homes for this knight. We get captures and rook takes to leave d5 open for the knight. An immediate knight e7 is good, but rook a3 instead, preparing to double those towers. Now knight d5 hopping. This one rotates just in time to challenge that mighty beast. That's why we see takes here. Queen recaptures, and now again h6 preferred, but queen f3 played to run the pawns down the board. A real armada coming at the black king. So the rook doubles here, going after the a2 pawn. g4, now h6, but here it's not so hot because Kramnik's got a tactic. He finds it by smashing through to the king here on the king side. Well done if you saw that move. If pawn takes, then the bishop's dropping, right? This is the point. So you cannot do that. Instead, you've got to go for the counterplay here. This is what Hulker does, crashes through, the king steps back, and now a great move. Ignore the engine here. I don't even know why it's calling this a miss. It's one of the top 3 lines. Queen e6, and there's a really sneaky point to it, right? This is the problem. So what do we see from Kramnik? Well, the wrong move here. He should play bishop e3, get out of the attack, prepare to run the pawns, and you can now bring this bishop back into the defense, cut the rank, the king's prepared to run. Very nice for white, but missed. Kramnik goes for the immediate g5, time's ticking by this point, but now, after queen b3, you're in dire straits.
Pooh, what a move. What a move.
Because queen b1, check and mate, basically, after the queen blocks, is threatened, and so you have to fight against it. Kramnik goes king g1, clearing a space for the queen to drop back. But after queen takes on c3, he's got to answer yet another defensive question, and he fails to do so. This time, say you take the bishop, there's a threat to go check, and after blocks, you can snake your way in like this, deliver a mate. Or if queen blocks, of course, this is a checkmate. So this is the new problem when you check from e1. Therefore, you have to fight back. Only way is with this crazy looking move, queen h3. I mean, the king feels so naked, but if you go for the same thing, well, now the rook can block and you've covered this square. And if instead you go for this, say you're threatening nothing actually, okay, but say you try that kind of thing. Anyway, the point I want to make is that there's some crazy lines where the rook moves out the way and white actually delivers this huge counterattack, all this stuff here. Anyway, none of that played because Kramnik plays the natural queen f1, but it gets the double question marks of doom. The Stockness monsters absolutely pooped its pants, butt flap open, because after queen d2, you're getting squashed like a bug. Hulk smash. This is a mate threat over here. How do you fight against it? Again, queen h3 is best, but this time you can liquidate everything. Pawn takes. What's the move here? Rook a1. I did click down these lines, but check here first. Sometimes you take on here and liquidate everything. But yeah, this is good for black. Long story short, when things come off the board, okay, we're somehow getting there. You have this running outside pawn and this one here, and these are the big problems. There were other lines as well where you liquidate down and get left with 2 pawns. So the final desperado played here is bishop takes on g7 with check, and it sets a cunning final sneaky trap, because if you take like this, then bang, it's mate in 3. If bishop takes, there's this, this. And if instead of bishop takes, we run it back one move, you do king here, well, now there's this queen f5 checkmate. Wow, that would be a turn up for the books. But we didn't see this move here of takes. Instead, the king just sidesteps, or that takes, sorry. And this is where the game then ended. Resignation from Vladimir Kramnik, because he's just got nothing left. There's this huge threat on the way, and if he covers with this one, again, we've got these lines. Okay, this is the one I actually analysed. The final position here, the bishop even drops. It's just completely over. This is the final position, and of course, there's really only one thing for it. When you get taken down by an FM, hope you enjoy this final sequence, and see you soon. Cheers.
And trust me, it's an absolute banger. It's a game changer.
Mushrooms.
Banger.
Mushrooms.
Banger.
Procedure,
Mushrooms.
Banger.
lock. This is first what I do.